Woo! It's pretty obvious that Steve is the talk of the town, and it's a little ironic how Wave 2 of Smash Ultimate's DLC spawned a lot of interesting areas of discussion in the meta. Ironic because the first wave actually didn't really have too many bumps on the road. And now we're at the point where people want to actually ban a character in Smash Ultimate's meta. Banning a character in Smash or in any fighting game is not something that happens too often. Normally if a character gets banned, it's because a strategy or a set of skills with that character has gone beyond the limits of the meta, or at least the perceived limits. That's where top tiers come in. Sometimes they're alone at the top of their own games and their meta, or there's a group of characters that make their own niche at the top of a game's meta. No, you may not get in the pool, Melee Bowser. The pool is closed. A lot of times top tier characters just get banned and people move on with their lives and play somebody else. Some interesting things can sprout from unbalanced metas though. In Marvel vs. Capcom 2, players got so tired of the Magneto Storm Cable combo to death, and people just said, you know what, let's just start playing mid and low tier characters at some of these tournaments and just start doing that instead. It makes the game feel completely different because the MVC2 top tiers run that game. You're not gonna go to an MVC2 tournament and not see Magneto. It's just, you're gonna see him. Alright, he's everywhere. But playing a low tier or a mid tier character in some of these games is like playing a completely different game. It goes to show how some people haven't even seen these characters in tournaments. That's how outclassed they are. And it shows that there's way more viable options and there's just deadlier characters that just outclass these. How am I comparing this to Smash? Well, Melee's meta is actually very similar to MVC2's, as you're going to see plenty of top and high tier characters in that game, but you're not gonna see any low tiers in sight. It's because the low tiers in Melee are definitely outclassed when it comes to their lack of range, power, or recovery, and those things being really important in that game. In Smash Ultimate, you don't really have that same problem as previous Smash games, as they actually succeeded with making the low tiers and top tiers at least playable. And I know some characters like Little Mac still suck. Sorry, Little Mac. But you can at least play him in tournament. You can't really say the same about Melee Bowser or Brawl Ganondorf, who I would just call Grandpa Dorf, because look at that run animation. It's kind of goofy. The reason why I brought these metas up and compared them to Smash Ultimate's meta is to show how close viability-wise Smash Ultimate's viability is. It's probably the most balanced Smash game as far as what characters you can play and the difference between the top tiers and the low tiers. But it goes to show when you add one character that goes a little bit over the edge, it can lead to controversy. And you might not believe that Steve is a broken character, but you definitely can't ignore the controversy that has surrounded him. And no, I'm not taking sides in the Steve debate. That's a bar fight. I don't want to enter that bar. Okay, I'll have my binoculars on and I'll watch the fight from outside. But I'm not joining it because I got no dog in the game. And I main Ness and I spam PK Fire. I'm a fraud. But if you've been living under a rock, I made a video on the character a while back, and it actually became immediately outdated because Phantom MLG got figured out a few weeks later. So yeah. When it comes to starting combos, he has tons of moves like his up tilt, which is honestly one of the best up tilts in the game, as it's a quick slap attack that sets up other attacks that Steve has in his moveset. Not only that, but Steve has plenty of a shenanigans. I mean, he's Steve, right? He's Steve from Minecraft, so of course he's gonna be building blocks, baby. And those blocks can stop approaches, they can gimp recoveries. Even my favorite option is, yeah, I love that one, I'm not gonna lie. He can even build blocks around himself to try to stop approaches and play more defensively. This can allow him to have time to craft for better tools. And when he crafts for better tools, that means he becomes a stronger character. Obviously, right? Honestly, Steve's tools, even when not upgraded, are still pretty good. Like his wood tools are good for low percent combos. And then obviously he gets more damage and KO power when they're upgraded to especially the diamond versions, where these moves are just crazy strong. It reminds me of another Marvel vs. Capcom character, but in MVC3, and that's Phoenix Wright, is a character who can upgrade their tool set throughout the match, and then they get stronger the more that their moveset is upgraded. However, when Steve upgrades his attacks, he doesn't really get that many weaknesses. Some characters, they like to balance out their strengths that they get when they're upgraded with giving them more weaknesses, maybe less health. But Steve just kind of remains the same, which goes to show how strong he truly can become. The minecart is such a strong tool because it comes out so quickly and deals so much knockback. It's great at breaking combos. Gee, I wonder if Steve had more combo breaking utility. I wonder what that would be like. I know I didn't go over every single thing that makes Steve, Steve. It just goes to show that a lot of things put together can easily make a character go a little bit over the edge. And Phantom MLG was kind of that thing for a lot of people. This technique allows Steve to escape out of hits by Phantom block placement with his neutral B in the air. When this technique is achieved, you essentially get to escape out of any confirm as it negates any knockback, leaving to Steve being instantly able to counterattack you. And because you'll be stuck in lag, yeah, it's not good. It should be noted that this tool is not available for any character in the cast, and people debate on whether its usage truly pushes Steve over the edge. Some people absolutely hate it, while others feel it's not consistent enough yet and needs to be optimized. Either way, it's pretty easy to see why Steve is so good in Smash Ultimate. Because the cast is so close-knit in this game, it means it's very easy for one character with a lot of tools to become a top-level threat. I mean, if you look at a lot of other top-level threats in Smash Ultimate, this is pretty much consistent across the board, whether they have a comeback mechanic, a silly ability to transform into two different characters at will, and oh my god, it's so quick, or they're just Kazuya and they have an essay full of moves that even I can't understand. I made Ness, guys, okay? Give me a break. I feel like more people look at Fox's placement in Melee and say, oh wow, Fox must be better than every other character in the cast, and don't get me wrong, if you're a low tier, that's definitely correct. However, there's plenty of other ways of beating Fox in Melee, and a lot of the top tiers and high tiers can have an edge on him, which is very interesting to see. So that means a lot of other characters can still compete with him. That's not the same for every character in Smash, so some people have a hard time realizing that, but it's true. Some of Fox's negatives are his ability to be a hacky sack when getting comboed, and the point of what I'm trying to say is Fox is definitely a menace, and I'm not trying to downplay the character, because he's definitely not bad. He can easily shut you down by his blistering fast attacks, ability to KO consistently, but what exactly makes a good character in Melee, you ask? In Melee, since the low tier characters struggle with many things like range, KO power, they lack projectiles. Not saying you need a projectile, but it does help. A lot of bad qualities can make you a bad character very easily in Melee, as the top tier characters in the game don't struggle in many areas, and the areas they do struggle in, they have a lot of positives to overlap the flaws. So if you don't have a consistent recovery, good KO power, range, bread and butter combo confirms, it really sucks. The worst characters in the game might struggle in multiple areas, so that means it's hard for them to carve a niche in the meta because they lack the tools. What makes a character shoot so tremendously high out the gate? DLC, baby. Where in Smash 4, some of the final DLC characters in that game just would totally flip the meta on its head. And of course, Bayonetta, we already know the character's capable of doing. These characters had so many positives going for them, whether it was their ability to just take a character to the top blast zone and just take them for a ride. Cloud was so broken. Using two Clouds on the same team in doubles became such a strong team comp, it became banned, and it totally broke the doubles meta. These characters were so good is because they could take you for a ride to the top blast zone so consistently, which was very important in Smash 4's meta because of the low ceiling, SDI being weaker in Smash 4, and it was really easy to destroy characters systematically in this game. Even Cloud having Limit totally changed how characters approached him because Cloud could just force approaches because he had the limit. So if you were trying to camp Cloud, he could just camp you right back. He could just hold limit and call it a day. Bayonetta had range, KO power, the ability to reverse opponents with one of the best counters probably in the whole game. And who thought this move was a great idea? I'm sorry. We strapped this to the best character in the game and we called it a day, didn't we? Not just that, but Bayonetta in the air would juggle you like you were a hacky sack. To the tippy top of the blast zone with her side special and up special, we've all seen the combos. These characters made Smash 4's meta their own personal Beanie Babies. And yes, I said Beanie Babies in 2023. They shot their way all the way to the top of the tier list. They were so oppressive that they made the whole meta defined by how good you were against them. So characters who did not have good matchups against Bayonetta and Cloud, they would find a decrease later on in the meta. It reminds me of another Smash game. In the earlier updates of Project M, yes, I know we're talking about a mod, my favorite mod of all time, by the way, the meta was actually completely different. You would see the meta today in Project Plus and you would be like, wow, what the hell, what do you, this was unbalanced? Yes, at one point the meta was very different than what it is today. Take 3.0 Mewtwo, which was the most broken 3.0 character to ever be introduced, and I'm not gonna lie, I was around back then. This version of Mewtwo was better in an engine where most characters were their most broken versions of these characters. So Mewtwo was like in a league of his own with a bunch of other characters that were also just in a league of their own. They would obviously nerf the cast in the future, but Mewtwo in this version had an insane recovery, crazy amounts of range that would make Marth blush. Honestly, like they gave Mewtwo like Swordy range. He had the whoop whoop, which if you haven't seen it, it's totally a sight to see. And yeah, he just was good in everything. But obviously these quirks would be toned down in future Project M updates, and this character would become much more balanced and well-rounded than being completely game-breaking. In Brawl, funnily enough, the meta became defined by one character, and that obviously being Meta Knight. Because Meta Knight's abilities to camp, combo, and Brawl's floatier engine, it just made this character quickly the most definitive best character in the game, frame data wise and jank wise. How good you were in Brawl really depended on your Meta Knight matchup, as a lot of characters, including the low tiers more specifically, just couldn't keep up with him whatsoever. And you might see a little bit of similarity between the low tiers in Melee and the low tiers in Brawl, as that's how stark the differences are between them. The low tiers are so below the pack when it comes to viability in both of those games, it really shows that they can't really do that much, which really sucks. What makes top tiers so dominant in Smash specifically is a lot of characters are close viability wise depending on the Smash game, like Smash Ultimate. It just takes a couple of things to just make a character go over the edge. In some Smash games, it's a character or two that just become ahead of the game and then just have way too many things going for them, and they make the whole roster their own. While in Melee and Brawl or Smash 4, a lot of low tier characters just lack the range, KO power, combo ability, neutral options, recovery, whatever it is. It could just be one or many of those things holding a character back, because the best of the best in most Smash games is a character that is good at multiple things. They might have flaws, but their positives are going to outweigh the negatives. Thank you guys for watching the video. Patreon down below. If you guys want to get early Honest content, thank you so much. If you guys want to stream my new album, Zach Honest Sapphire, go stream it. Thank you. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Patreon down below. Okay, peace. Thank you. Bye-bye.